Good afternoon. We will try to play with me being as loud as I am, and you being able to understand and hear. So, first of all, if I begin to speak too quickly, please just one of you go, slow it down. When I stand in the stream that is the merging of what I know here, what I know here, what I know here, and what comes through when I am in that alignment, I can get going pretty quick and delivering a lot of words at once. So please feel free to say, slow down. If you put asshole on the end, I will react even better to that, actually. So, my name is Ken Edwards. I am an author. I'm a podcast host. I'm an educator. I'm a contributor to the Pagan Chronicle, the newspaper. If you don't have the newest edition, you can get them right outside the front door. I am also a spirit worker and shaman, initiated shaman of the Northern traditions. Northern traditions includes Anglo-Saxon and Norse, pretty much anything pre-Christian Northern European. However, we do not have a direct lineage. So most oral societies and oral traditions that fell to the conqueror do not have a direct lineage. So a lot of what we do is based upon lore that has been kept as far as we can tell. Sometimes it's written down by Christian monks, which is suspicious. But a lot of what we do is also then infused with our own gnosis from our own connection with the deities from the old gods, what we would consider as the old gods. If you're interested to learn more about me, up here, runewalker.com is my website. I apologize, all of the events are a little outdated, but you can find me there. You can find me on Face Monster, Instagram, TikTok, any of those. And so, I have a new book coming out next month I forgot about. Yeah, thank you. It's called Get Your Shit Together 101. Yeah, listen, we all need it, which is why it got written. It's a very short book. It's about 92 pages. It's my almost 20 years of experience working with people spiritually and then also before in more corporate ways. This book is one I wish I had to hand to a client who was plagued by not being able to sleep with dead people lining up to their door. And not just that. This book is something I wish I had to give to people who don't know how to keep their own energy to themselves, who don't know how to create boundaries, which we often in this kind of realm refer to as shielding. So they're all things that are appropriate for whether you're building a personal practice that is not spiritual or a spiritual practice. So that's coming out next month, yeah. Okay, so in the Northern traditions, our creation story begins with two concepts, fire and ice. Those are very key, very important aspects and symbolism in the Northern traditions. If you look at Iceland, that makes sense, right? Like the volcanoes and the ice, that makes sense. Northern Europe was a very cold place, it still is. And so fire was very important for us and for our ancestors. The symbolism of fire and ice that we're going to look at today is the idea of fire, one of the aspects of fire, being your inner fire, your inner knowing. It's the parts of you that are passionate, the parts of you that are instinctual. I see that we have three centers of knowing. We have our intellect, we have our emotion, and we have our instinct. Emotion and instinct are places that in our body that we don't necessarily listen to or trust. And we also don't know them very well because we don't listen to them and trust them. So fire in this context of today is what comes out of your belly and your emotional and your instinctual centers of knowing. The parts of you that when you say, oh my God, I should have trusted my gut, right? We never say, oh, thank God I trusted my gut, because it's usually because we didn't, that we're now paying attention. But that is where that's fire for us today. Ice, the concept of ice today that I would like you to hold in your awareness is the fact that it is water in its solid form. In the north, ice can be a bridge. If a river or a lake freezes over, you can then travel to somewhere that maybe you haven't been able to travel before. It can also represent blockage and slowness. But in this instance, we're talking about fire into ice in those types of terms, passion, creativity into solid form. So that's where we're headed with today. In my life, I've learned that the more I listen to the runes, or the more I ask the runes, the more I allow them to have their say in what I'm going to present, the better off I am. My intention for pulling runes is, hey, I pulled runes for this, and by the way, if you want notes to this, it's my article in here this month. So if you're like, oh, I really want to remember that, just go get your paper. 4A is the page. So so that article's due the middle of January. So I probably pulled runes beginning of December. My brain can't wrap itself around who's going to be here or what the hell is going to be happening at this time period today, which is why I ask the runes. Okay, I don't know all of these things, but you do. You can see beyond my little idea of linear time. You can pull all that together and show me what I should speak about that's actually going to impact everybody here today because they know better than what I think I know. So that is how I got to our topic today and the topic of the article. I usually start with 3 runes because also in the tradition of the North, we have the concept of the fates, which is similar to, the fates is like Mediterranean-ish. In our traditions, we have them called the Nornir. The difference is that sometimes when we talk about fate, it's someone sweeping in and changing our fate, saving us from ourselves. The key thing about the North and about the Norns is this. That is not how it works. Not even the gods can escape the results of their actions in those traditions and lore. That is very key and cornerstone to my worldview. So when I pull 3, it's because I'm pulling one that represents that which is becoming, and then that which must be. So past, present, future-ish. So what I'm looking at in terms of life is, what does that story look like? What does that story arc look like? What does the thread look like that is going to be, that we're going to be talking about, that's woven into each of our tapestries into our lives today? So I always begin with the 3 of them, and then hopefully I get what's going on. But then we move from there. So when I pulled runes like 6-8 weeks ago, we start out with the rune Kenaz, which looks like is that a greater than or less than sign? I'm not a mathematician. We then have Os, which is one of the, if you all are familiar with the Elder Futhark, there are 24 of them. Anglo-Saxon, there are 33. Os is one of those. And then Esau. So Kenaz starts out with your inner fire, inner knowing. Kenaz in the rune poems is represented as a pine torch. It also can be looked at, and they use the word ulcer, like a burning in the belly, which for us through a modern lens, talks about like burning of your belly, the passion, the fire, right? It doesn't necessarily, we can translate it into I have an ulcer, but the burning in the belly is very much a passionate idea. So, unless you have night vision goggles, your eyeballs cannot see in the dark. So, having a torch or having a way to see in the dark is essential. Now, when we apply that to these centers of knowing, being my emotion and my instinct, right? When your instinct tells you to do something, it's seeing in a way that your eyeballs cannot see. So it is kind of like seeing in the dark. That's Kenaz. When we turn and look at Os, we're turning and looking at this idea of creation and destruction through breath. One of the ideas, things posed or posited about this rune is that one of the Proto-Indo-European words it comes from, or the word that it is, means God. Now, in terms of God or gods being able to speak something into existence, not just do something, but gods say something and it happens. So, in terms of Os, the question that is frequently asked is, what is your relationship with breath? We are all very aware, because it's happened to all of us, I can pretty much guarantee you, unless you've lived alone your whole entire life. Someone has yelled at you, someone has scolded you, someone has screw you, all of that stuff, and made you feel like shit, right? The power of destruction is great within us. If only we would recognize that our power to create is equally as powerful, right? So that's one of the beautiful things about this rune, is that it does ask that of us. Esau, so remember, we're looking at this as a sentence. So Kenaz, Os, Esau. Esau is the rune of ice. Traditionally, the meanings passed down to us have been ice being blockage, ice being a way to destroy something. But I think we have to... I have a soapbox somewhere. Hold on. Okay, I'm on my soapbox. You got to pull your shit out of the binary. That's a Christian mentality. So you have that. To be truly pagan, you have to pull your shit out of that. I firmly believe that. Even modern neo-pagan things that are too wrapped up in male and female are just smell a little bit like hierarchy. Okay, hold on. Okay, off my soapbox. So, the runes are the same. The runes are beings, they're entities, they're living wisdom, and they're wisdom for living. So, you can't accept ice as being destruction if you don't accept it as something that can preserve, right? Your freezers do it every day, right? You can't accept Os as the power of creation unless you accept it as the power of destruction. So it's easier for us to interpret these symbols if we have a good, bad, right, wrong. It only means this one word, right? But the nature of nature is not this box that we put it into, right? So, okay, so when I saw this, I thought to myself, okay, how did I put it in the article? Hold on. Oh, turn your fire into solid form through breath. I'm an Aries, and whether I've adopted what we think about Aries, with a Sag rising, by the way, and a Pisces moon, which means deep in I'll burn anything down or drown anything. And I'd rather would, usually. When I feel creative passion or when I feel inspired, I'm going to take action. If I don't, that becomes messy, okay? I did so many years in another religion that might be predominant here, where I ignored my body. I ignored my passion, I ignored my fire. That doesn't work for me. I found that out. Luckily, I didn't have to, have a stint at uni. Not that that's bad. I just luckily found that out before I got to that point. So, the thing that interested me most in this sentence was, how does os fit in? Because also, thank you. Fire, air, water. Very elemental in concept. I just got that. See? Things happen all the time. So, the interesting thing for me was, how does fire get transformed into ice or something solid through air? So, what happens for me then, if I don't, even if I kind of think I understand where we're going, I realize that I am not the smartest. I will pull runes to kind of direct me in a way with that rune. So if I want to know about os, I'm going to pull 2 runes that go underneath it. So in this case, the runes that we pulled, that is not the royal we, runes that I pulled, were Uruz and Thurazaz. So, I was a bit, was I? Yeah. I was a bit more confused because Uruz, we'll drop this down. Uruz is connected to the aurochs, which is an extinct water buffalo, went extinct in the 1600s. We hunted it, and we also took away its grazing lands. If you look it up, the thing stood about this tall. Like, they're gigantic. So there was no way that they could survive with us taking over. So this one is about strength, but like a pushing strength. It also, to me, really connects to my instinct, my center of instinct, which is my gut, right? Because, sorry for the bad dad jokes, but the geese did not get an email telling them to fly south. Right? They just knew to do it, yeah? So they sensed it was time, they knew it was time, something shifted, their connection with their environment, with our environment, told them, go. So this part of you is I call it the unencumbered self, or the wild self. The part of you that knows which way to go without a map, that knows what to do without facts, also the place that can see in the dark, because it doesn't really matter if you can see, because you just know where to go. Thurazaz is a little different. Thurazaz is the rune of chaos, destruction, and deconstruction. The difference between the last two is whether or not you're participating. You can stand there and things will be destroyed around you, or you can start taking things apart. This is the part where I think if we all understood that a little better, soapbox. If we all understood that a little better and things are falling apart in our life, we could actually step into a place of, okay, it's falling apart because shit just needs to go. I'm not in the right space for what I want. So what do I need to take apart? What can stay? What needs to go? So it's also looks like a thorn. And in Anglo-Saxon, it actually is thorn, not Thurazaz. So when it comes to looking at creation and destruction through breath, accessing your instinct down here to do that, to create or destroy, number one is something I've spoken about before. When you can create from that place, you're creating from a place of knowing that that's what you want because you feel it, and so there's no question. But how does chaos, destruction, and deconstruction play into this. This is what I saw. Not literally, figuratively. Normally, when we're talking about building something, we talk about building it with the foundations first. We talk about building it with materials that we bring in and then fix together. Yeah? That is not what sculptors do when they begin with a block of marble. They take their chisel, they take their hammer, and they begin to chip away at the stone to reveal the piece of art that they see on the inside. We do not think about creating our lives from that perspective most of the time. Someone today, one of my friends, said, "Oh, that's kind of a Buddhist perspective," and I was like, "Bye. Thank you. I don't know." So now we have that in our awareness, right? The idea is about creating your life from your instinct and then also in a different way. We're not building it, we're chiseling it away, right? So the next thing we're going to do is take a drink. Everyone's with me on this? Okay. So let's begin by then looking at what happens when we pull runes to now. How does Kenaz play into this, right? How do I direct, what's the direction to Kenaz with this? So when I pulled 2 runes for that, was anybody here last year when I spoke? Thank you. Yes, thanks. Last year I spoke about alignment. And it had to do with this rune, Wunyo, or Win is the Anglo-Saxon name. So the idea of what this means is it means joy. I also interpret it as the situation that you're feeling that allows you to feel joy. It's the alignment. So, alignment, in my presentation last year, in my tradition, I was taught a diagnostic tool, I don't know, something like that. We look at it as your soul being in 17 parts. There are a central 9 of them that are just you, that aren't like your relationship with the gods, your relationship with your ancestors, your relationship with community. Those are kind of out on the outskirts of this. But the idea is that if all of those 9 things within you, which can range from your physical body to your energetic body, how you know and understand your own emotions, what is your relationship with your breath, maybe in terms of like chi or ki in Eastern terms. What is your relationship with your liter, which is your zest for life, your passion, your creativity? Could be likened to Kundalini energy, right? So there are several of these things. When they're all aligned, you're experiencing much less resistance and friction in life, okay? Kenaz, you can hear yourself much better when all of these pieces are in alignment. Now, this one, it can be seen as either of these symbols. Ingus or Ing connects to the god Freyr or Ingvi Frey. Sacrifice for the greater good is like a good generic term for this. It can also be initiation. It can also be, a few other things. Not to go back into the binary for you, but male and female versions of it. That is not written anywhere. This is just me going, oh, Freyr and Freya. So a very natural, Vanic, people of the earth, people of nature, people of that cycle. Look at it. But what this says now is for you to hear yourself, for you to have your inner fire, inner knowing, alignment is necessary. Also, alignment what are you going to get rid of that you're addicted to that you think keeps you in alignment but doesn't? I'm going to go here for a second, so forgive me. Coffee may not help me all the time, right? I'm using it to keep myself awake and to do things, but a proper alignment would be this. I'm getting enough rest, I'm eating properly, I've gotten my schedule down to the point where I'm not overscheduled, and I can actually have proper time and energy for what I'm doing. Make sense? So that's just one way to look at this. But when you're here, when you're in alignment, let me tell this story actually. The first time I'd ever heard of Reiki was, I don't know, a gajillion years ago. But the young man who explained to me what it is said this: I should only ever have to give someone Reiki once, because this was his philosophy. If I give you Reiki once, and you know what it feels like to be in alignment, when you encounter something that pulls you out of alignment, you are made aware of that, you get rid of it, and it puts you back into alignment. That story has stuck with me for a very long time now. But it's the same thing that happens in this instance, right? And if we go back and look at now, these make a little bit more sense, right? If we're carving out and chiseling out like a marble sculptor, we have to chisel and get rid of the things on the outside to make the piece of art in the middle come to life. Same thing. I don't think it's skipping ahead to say this. It might be. It's a teaser. You may actually already have all the things in your life that you need and desire. We just refuse to look at it, or we're distracted by these things that we still hold on to, right? So we're going to leave that there for a second. Also, thank you. Alignment has a cost, right? You get your tires aligned. It is not free unless you pay for it in the beginning, which you still pay for it. They just tell you it's free down the road. Getting rid of these things that no longer help you be in alignment is a sacrifice, because usually those things are the things that made you feel safe, that made you feel comforted. Food, for me. Those are things that made us feel accepted. They're the things that kept us feeling safe from a weird dom-sub kind of way. Okay? So, to give up the thing that makes you feel safe, the power in giving that thing up to take on something new is way bigger than saying, I'm going to give up chocolate for Lent, but I don't really like chocolate anyway, so it's fine. Like, there's no power in that sacrifice, right? There's no power in that sacrifice. There's power in the sacrifice of you giving up the thing that keeps you alive, that's kept you, especially those of us with, childhood trauma at some point. We created a wall around ourselves because of that fear and because of that trauma. Giving that up is intense. It takes the therapist usually, but the power released in that allows us to then have alignment, which then moves us into, from a place of alignment, we can then look at really manifesting the life that we want, okay? So let's move to Esau. I frequently find the runes funny and snarky and a little sarcastic. The two runes that represent and direct me to a meaning for Esau are both fire runes. So again, we're playing with fire and ice again. This top rune, the middle, is Nauthiz or Neith. Nauthiz Now is the rune of need fire. The concept for our ancestors might have been, we're having a blight in our village, something is happening. What we need to do is come together. We're going to build a fire the old-fashioned way by rubbing two sticks together, create that fire, and potentially separate it into two, pass the animals through it to bless them, to cleanse them, to clear them. We'll take some of that fire and take it back into each of our hearth, right? So the concept of this that I wanted to talk about a little bit more is, has anyone ever started a fire by rubbing two sticks together? It takes forever, right? It takes discipline. It takes sometimes blood, sweat, and tears. It takes focus. It takes dedication. Usually you're doing it because you actually need it, right? Our relationship with fire would be very different if we didn't have light switches and a thermostat and a stove, right? And a microwave. So the idea with Nauthies is that it's need fire, it's need. What do you really need? Moving down, we have Sowilo. Sowilo is the rune of the sun, connected to, in the northern traditions, the sun is actually feminine and the moon is masculine, which is, happens a couple other times across the world, but not many. So it connects to that goddess Sol or Suna. It's a rune connected to the Valkyries. It's a rune connected to victory. If I put two of these together, right? That's why they used it. That's why the Nazis used it. Assholes. Yeah. Anyway, so it's a rune of victory. It's also a rune of one of my least favorite words, which is enlightenment. But if we break it down, instead of calling it enlightenment, and we just call it, I've gained knowledge, I've gained wisdom, I've leveled up in my understanding, which is what kind of the term enlightenment is about. We're going to go with that kind of definition when it comes to that. So, all right, now. Yes, it's coffee. We're all learning at all times. Leave me alone. Okay, one thing I want to talk about real quick before we look into this even further is this. Bad. Sorry if you can't read this. I think it's close. For those of you who maybe garden or have plants of your own, this cycle should look familiar. So it's our natural cycle, especially here in Utah. In the winter we rest, the ground rests. In the spring we plant. Summer, spring we care for. There are 3 harvests, but then we harvest, right? So sometimes we can plant, care for, and harvest several times in our season, which is great. This cycle is at the root of everything we should be doing. It's at the root of everything we feel. This, on a macrocosm, is the climate that we live in. Some places have a wet and dry season. That's it. You have one of these for yourself. You potentially have one of these that happens on a monthly, every 3 months, right? Like, what does my monthly cycle look like? And I don't necessarily mean your moon cycle. That's not what I'm talking about. What does it look like in spring? What does this look like in winter? What does this look like in fall, right? So, and that's going to be different every season. To try and hold yourself to the most productive one of those, you're going to burn out real quick. But understanding what this looks like lets me know for myself when to schedule shit. For about a month before my birthday, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, because I've burned so many things down. And I know I need to schedule less. I can't schedule myself like I can in summer. It won't work. It won't happen. I end up doing shitty work. I end up being exhausted and tired, usually end up getting sick if I can't control it. And you probably feel the same. So because the runes are wisdom for living, they're wisdom for living in Northern Europe, which is a similar climate. We just have a few less oceans. But that concept is still applicable here. So, now, okay, we'll move on. That was it. That was my page. Maybe. So, how many of you made New Year's resolutions? How many of you thought about trying something new this year? How many of you thought, oh, I need to eat differently, right? Like, we've shied away now from saying New Year's resolutions because those don't work, and we know they don't work. What we do, the thing I think we can give ourselves a little pat on the back for, is we do realize that here where we live, this time of year where we're meant to rest and reflect on what went well last year, be in the dark, seeing in the dark. What do I want? What does my gut want? What does my heart? Where do I begin to feel drawn in the coming year? What is piquing my interest? Because we don't have to worry necessarily about growing food. This is a time where we do this. So it follows along with setting New Year's resolutions follows along with the cycle. It does. It just has us do it a little too early. So, in this cycle, we just went through Imbolc, right? Which I always refer to as the quickening. The quickening is the time of year when, because now we've had more sun, and it's getting lighter every day, the earth begins to warm up, the plants underneath ground begin to stir. So us knowing that this time of year is the time when the ground is receptive to seeds, or it's starting to warm up. We might be starting to put our starts together in the next month. Now is the time to really start feeling into what is it that I want? What are my goals and my desires for the coming year? If we've done it at the beginning of this rest period, you're probably looking at the wrong things because your mindset is still stuck in last year. You haven't given yourself time to rest. You haven't given all of that time to disintegrate to then be able to feed into next year, okay? So don't get too excited about making these goals and things, especially if they're coming from here instead of here. Wait until now. And you still even have time, okay? Spend some time sitting, thinking. I'm going to scratch that. Spend some time sitting and feeling, or instincting is what I call it, what is coming, what this feels like. Now, going back to this real quick, using this here, if I have a garden, my aunt tells the story beautifully because my grandparents didn't have enough money to buy. They bought like one cow in the spring, and they bought seeds. So we live in one of those places that's great for gravel excavation. So the soil is complete shit. But every spring she had to go out, and she tells the story of picking up the rocks and taking them out of the garden because no matter what you did, the garden was really good at growing rocks because it was just gravel underneath. So we had to do that. You have to weed, right? You have to go in, make the rows, you have to weed, you have to maybe amend it because we live here, put some horse manure in there. There are things that you have to do to add and to take out. This is the same process. To get your garden in alignment, there are things that you're going to have to remove and possibly add, okay? So if you're thinking about that, yourself in terms of a garden, what are those things that you're going to need? And I need you to hear me when I say this. For those of you who heard it before, I apologize. You cannot plant corn and harvest barley. So, if you're in last year planting in your head, planting corn, but you really want barley, you're going to treat your garden differently between those two things. You're going to plant them at different times. You're going to care for them differently. So, where are you setting your goals and then doing the same exact thing that you did last year, and you maybe harvested them, but it really wasn't what you wanted, right? So begin to think about, what does your garden need now? What does your garden need for the things that you want next year, but coming out of this space of your body instead of this space? Okay. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to go back to the sculptor, because this is something, of course, it's wisdom for all of us. It's not like I'm just like, oh, I already do this. Because it was such a different take for me to think about it as sculpting. Everything we have is already here. Everything you have is already there. But this is the key. The alignment is the key. If you think, this might be a good, for me and for you, if you begin to start thinking about building something instead of chiseling something away, you know you're on the wrong track for this year. This is not an every year process. It will change next year because the runes are about the living cycle. We will probably I've done this for almost 20 years. I've never gotten this as the wisdom for now, for us, for now. You have everything you need. I mean, please buy crystals and drums and things, but when it comes to the stuff inside, you have everything you need. You just need to chisel away to get to it. So hear me again when I say, if you begin thinking you need to build something, that should be a signal that you're on the wrong, that you're repeating a cycle that hasn't worked and that is not going to work in this year. You need to pick up the hammer and chisel and start chiseling away. Make sense? Okay. When David was editing our work to go into the article, the paper, I would send it to him and he would tell me what he thought and, oh, this seems incomplete, or I'd like to hear more about this. Well, frequently there were times where he's like, I really like this, and I would go back and read it and I'm like, me too. That was new. Like, being in that flow, just sometimes shit just comes out, because that's how that works when we're in collaboration with the things around us. So it was amazing for me too to hear this, because I like to buy things. Okay, so I know we're almost out of. Oh, great. That's shocking. I'm never done early. That came out wrong. It came out really wrong. What I would like to finish. This isn't going to go anywhere but there for a second. Okay. What I'd like to finish with, my friends, is this. The keys in this aspect are alignment. Whoa, I broke that. Seriously? Alignment. Everyone's alignment is different. And again, your alignment now is going to be different than your alignment in summer, in fall, in winter. Okay? There is absolutely no way that you should. Your spiritual practice should be different and evolving month to month, season to season. If you find yourself dropping off with something because it feels like you just kind of lose track of it and you stop doing it, take that as a hint as your time to move on from that. Find something different. Don't beat yourself up because you're not doing it anymore. Yourself, instinct, and emotion, intuition, knows you're done with it. So move on. It's not time for that. So, alignment is key. Alignment based upon your instinctual, unencumbered, wild self that knows where to go without a map, what to do without instructions, what to feel, how to interact. This is the place you need to work from. When you are sculpting, when you're chipping away at that marble slab, okay? In our bid to, oh, thank you again, new one. Again, you can't have creation without destruction, right? As end posts on a spectrum. We frequently think about them being two separate things. But in this instance, to create, we are destroying at the same time. Make sense? We're destroying. We're getting rid of, we're chipping off this little thing over here, which is me overeating because I felt emotionally unstable and insecure and my needs weren't met. Oh, I didn't know what my needs were because I wasn't listening to what my needs were. Okay? The last thing that is of, I think, utmost importance here, don't give up. Do you remember how long it took you to start that fire? It takes a long damn time. Part of my training is in building a relationship with fire, we have to build fire many different ways. We have to build fire using a glass lens. We have to build fire using like flint and steel. That is very difficult. If you're using flint and steel, sometimes as you flick it and as you strike it, you cut yourself and you bleed. You can't stop because you need the fire. You need the relationship with the fire. It takes blood, sweat, tears. It takes determination. It takes focus. It takes discipline. That's the other thing about this. When you get going with the two sticks rubbing them together, you have to stay consistent. It has to be a certain speed. You have to be aware of, is it actually sparking coal at the bottom of it? So all of this is for naught if you don't stick to it. And knowing that it's going to be hard. You can take a break. Hell yes. Okay, I need a break from therapy. I need a break from therapy TikTok or whatever, therapy talk. And it's okay. In fact, those, my friends, are built into this. If you're paying attention and you're planting my thought of I'm going to work on my mommy issues, my daddy issues, whatever, that trauma, that programming is a better word, I think, for me. What do I need to do? How do I need to work into that? Do I need a therapist? Can I do it myself? Moving into here, harvesting. Okay, I'm seeing the reward of my hard work, right? And I gotta tell you, this is something that goes over and over and over. Because the minute you get older, which is, well, now you're older than you were a minute ago, your body changes, your chemistry changes, your needs change. Your emotional needs, the needs of your body change. Time to rest. So also don't try and tackle it all at once. I don't build a bonfire and then start to do, you take it little by little. You can't build a roaring fire. It takes a process. So don't beat yourself up. Just stick to it. Also, don't inundate yourself with too many of these things to do, because I'll tell you this. I told you there are those 9 parts of your soul, right, that I kind of talked about. So you have all 9 of them. Don't think those are the chakras. They're not. This one up here that is your Gothi, your Givya, your priest or priestess. In my terms, it is like your antenna to receive information from other or from the divine. This can be affected by all of these. If one of them is out of alignment, it can affect this. Let me give you a very good example. If I am hungry, I won't say the F word. We are screwed. Screwed. If I am hungry, my emotions get out of whack eventually. I'm not able to think clearly. And by hungry, my body's not properly nourished, right? Which then does affect my connection to the divine. It affects my ability as a shaman of the northern traditions to cross over into another realm to bring back or intercede for any of you or for the community at large and bring back information that's applicable and helpful and appropriate. That affects me doing that. If I don't understand my emotions, they made me do this, by the way. So one of the developments in my toolbox of skills was this. When I began to connect with the dead on a more visceral level, the way it happened was they would make me feel in my body how they died. And that was disturbing because I didn't know what those things felt like. The next thing that comes up is emotions. What emotions are they feeling? If I don't know what my dictionary of emotions is, if I don't know what happiness feels like, regret, sadness, betrayal, if I don't know what that feels like in my body, they're trying to convey that to me and I'm not understanding. I have no idea, none. So I had to, like I said, they forced me. That wasn't in the job description, by the way. Like that was very fine print. But I have to know those things. So all of these things being out of alignment will affect me being able to connect, right? Any of these things being out of alignment will affect you accessing your unencumbered wild self, the part of you that knows which way to go without a map, which affects your alignment. But if you can act from this, if you can get into alignment, get rid of the things, remember, chisel off like a stone, access this even better, chisel the stone, work at it enough, and keep with it. This is the way in 2025, in our growing cycle of this year, that this is going to work best. I believe that is true, and I believe that's why they shared that with me to share with you. And if you would like, again, the written version of this, 4A, available right outside the door. And we have time to take, I will take a couple of questions if you have them about any of this or anything else. And no, I've never been to prison. I should have started with that because some of you might have been thinking about that the whole time. Yeah, so question was, well, it was a comment, yes. You touched on what Tabitha is going to be presenting about and talking about later on today. At Samhain, when we did this, Vlad back there with his books, go check those out. I'm presenting to this room of people, and he's like, I'm like, yes, young lad over there. He said, for those of you who are in my class, this is part 2 to what I taught. We don't get together and talk about and plan out who's going to talk about what. It just happens that way when you're stepping into an alignment or a stream like that. So I will. Decisions become less when you are in alignment with yourself. Because if your body knows the A or B, the A is better than B, B won't really be an option. You might think about it for a second, but you'll be drawn to A. So that's also a way that you can tell that you're getting in better alignment with yourself, is that you're questioning less and you're having to make less decisions. You just know which way to go. Questions? Other questions? Yeah. Oh, I love you for that. So the question was, how do we know when my new book is coming out? If you, it will be on runewalker.com. It will be on my social media. I will be having a book launch party. It's probably going to be in March now. I've realized this weekend. At the Conjuring Tree. If you've ever heard of that store, it's in West Jordan. We love the Conjuring Tree. That's kind of like one of my home places. It will be there, so if you get onto their website, it'll have it listed on their events as well. I am doing a bind rune class where we create a bind rune and then you carve it into wood on the 18th there. I'm also teaching a free class the next day, the 19th, they have a Craft Your Path series, which are free 45-minute classes. And I'm going to be speaking about heroes and villains and how that affects our spirituality and spiritual beliefs, even our cultural beliefs. I would like to de-Disneyfy you all. De-Disneyfy, which means I'm going to pull you out of prince, princess, saved. When you start looking at your beliefs and things in those type of terms, you kind of begin to see the cage that you're held in as well. So Disney does a great job of teaching us all of that from a very young age. Thank you for the question. I answered? Yes. Okay. Other ones? Yeah. So the question was, do I think that in the process of building up, we can also be chiseling away? Yes. I think that is not the message that they're delivering for this time of year. However, if we look at Thurazaz in a different way, how I normally look at it is Thurazaz is like a tornado. It's also like Fenris the wolf, that in my tradition is the being that kills Odin, that starts, but basically is responsible for the end of the world, Ragnarok. I see this as a tornado that comes through. It comes through, it rips your house apart, and then you have to then go look at the pieces that are left over. Now, if that's in terms of destruction. If we look at it in terms of deconstruction, this is, okay, I know my house is coming down. They're going to tear it down. It's been condemned. I can choose which pieces I'm going to take away from it, to build the next container that I'm going to be living in or growing in. So I do think you can be doing them at the same time. Yeah, for sure. And I don't want to say that this applies because of tariffs or anything, but I know a lot of people that I work with who are looking at their finances and their resources and saying, where do I need to cut back? Because price cuts and things that I thought were coming aren't coming. And I now have to maybe come get my hair done less. That's one of my other part-time jobs. And what does that look like? So in terms of the context for this message, I really do believe it is because we are going to be looking at a little bit of a shift in how we deal with each of our individual resources and also community resources in this coming year. I'm not really looking forward to that, but if we keep at it, and we keep determined and we keep focused, then we can do that. Next year may be exactly what you're talking about. But this year, I think, is more to do with this. But I think you can. I think you can be doing that. Yeah, for sure. All right, you guys. If you have any other questions, I'll be around. If you want to stick around for 1:30 is the drum. We're doing a drum healing. It'll be here. We're going to be, several of the spirit workers and myself will be doing drums for you. Setting intention for healing for you. And I appreciate you so much being here today. I thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.